My today's special guest is Christine Malloy, a top Long Island realtor with over 25 years of experience. As a Long Island native, she's built a reputation for trust, discretion, and strong client relationships by helping families and businesses find the right place to call home. What makes her inspiring is that she doesn't just focus on closing deals, she focuses on building trust and guiding people through big life transitions with care, discretion, and persistence. And she did that all while she being a full-time mom of two beautiful kids who are grown-ups now. Welcome, Christine. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. And I know a lot about you because we already had a previous conversation, but I had a few questions, I would like to share with my audiences. The first question I have is if you can talk me about your childhood and how it influenced your personality while growing up.
So I would say I was the youngest of three kids, and I grew up, in the 70s and 80s where there wasn't devices. So we had to be imaginative, play on the street, figure it out. There weren't parents necessarily intervening in all of our activities.
Yeah.
So I think that just created an environment for me personally where I could make decisions, right or wrong, good or bad. So that lifestyle was just like very, I don't know, I think it was very entertaining. The stimulation came from friends and from using your imagination.
I remember you mentioned when we had the previous conversation that you talked about your mom, how she influenced you, like being like a hard worker.
Yeah, so my mom was a college graduate. She was born in 1934. Women going through college wasn't necessarily a necessity for a lot of women at that point of life. But she went to St. John's, which is where I also graduated from.
Mm-hmm.
She was a teacher, but then, like most of the women her age, when she had kids, she decided to be a stay-at-home mom. Circumstances changed, and she decided that she had to go back to work to help support the family. And just that kind of work ethic for me was something I grew up seeing from a very, very young age. And then later on in life, as I was going to college at St. John's, she was actually getting her master's because she had gone back into teaching. So I'm graduating college and she's getting her master's. So it was just something that was very inspirational.
Wow, that's very good. My second question is, I know the big portion. I think I'm really impressed about how you come out, and grown in your professional journey. So how did your professional journey took you to become a realtor eventually? If you can give a little bit insight.
Yeah, I guess like real estate, I've been involved in it in some facet, and there's so many different facets. So even one of my first jobs was working for a big restaurant company in the city, and they owned 99-year leases on basically every corner in Manhattan, and I was part of the construction and development team for all of those restaurants like Dunkin' Donuts and all these concepts that some of them aren't even around anymore, but like a TGI Fridays or things like that. So that part of real estate I was always around. And then I moved to Atlanta and I wound up working again at a big real estate company, but just doing more development from a commercial aspect. And that I just kind of continued staying in and around real estate in that way. Moving back to New York, I worked for a developer in Manhattan, so doing condo development down in Soho and Tribeca. And then when I moved out to Long Island, my dad had gotten sick, and I just kind of pumped the brakes. I had my kids, but I was working on like a PTA website one night, and my husband's like, "Well, what are you doing? It's time to get back to work." So I tried to figure out something I could do that I thought would give me some balance, that I could do the most important job of being a mom,
Right.
and do what I was connected to, which was real estate. So I had my license in Atlanta, but I didn't have my license in New York, and I got my license and started just kind of grinding. I had really no basis in residential real estate sales. But that's what I started doing.
So how much of a gap was like when you left real estate in Atlanta to start it again here? Like how
So
many
I
years?
wasn't doing residential like I'm doing now in Atlanta, but you needed your license in Atlanta to do what I was doing commercially. I was doing multifamily housing disposition.
Mhm.
So it's like big apartment complexes. I guess if you would think of like the Avalon
Right.
in the South, those types of properties are all over the place. So I was working on a team that, sold portfolios.
Mhm.
And you needed your license,
Right.
even though I wasn't,
Right.
literally doing open houses in Atlanta. It was required or suggested. So there was really like no gap because I never did what I started to do in New York.
Gap as a mom, like when you were not working. So how many years you were staying?
Not very many. I was
Okay.
probably about, I would say maybe about 7-8 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I know it doesn't come easy, to be where you are today. So I would like to know what are your challenges and trumps through that had on your way being a realtor estate agent. If you can talk a bit about challenges and the wins, basically.
Yeah, I think the challenge at the beginning was just kind of getting comfortable. Like you felt like everybody else knew what they were doing, and there are, some people who've got this brand name, and it's like, could I ever really get to where they are, and the way that they did it? I think I just took a different approach, especially. I think I'm doing this maybe 15, 16 years, like as a residential person, but I found buyer agency very, very interesting. I thought that it was a little weird that someone was coming into an open house unrepresented and that they were coming to the listing agent without having any guidance whatsoever. And I think that even today, people truly don't understand that going to a listing agent directly isn't always the best bet.
Right.
For the buyer, because there is an element of guidance that most people need. There are some
Right.
people who really don't,
Right.
and I appreciate that. Just like there's some sellers who can sell their own house.
Correct.
I think most people need an advocate on their side.
Right.
So my approach was buyer agency, and I wanted to start in the business how I wanted to finish. So I was always very particular about who I worked with. And that's not typical either. Like most agents, jumping and grabbing anybody. And it's not that I didn't need or want the money.
Right.
I also just wanted the experience to be good for both people,
Mm.
me and the client.
Correct.
So it's hard to say no
Okay.
to somebody.
Okay.
That you don't want to work with them because you're thinking, okay, they're going to buy a house eventually, or even sell a house. But
Right.
I think the overall experience is more important.
Yeah. So you chose quality over quantity.
I did. So, and I also very early, I made some really strategic mistakes. Like I didn't value my own time.
Mhm.
I would take phone calls at 11 o'clock at night. I would tell my kids to shush in the back of the car because the client was more important, or that's when they could talk. And I didn't have great boundaries or guardrails because I thought that if I said this time doesn't work for me, that meant that person wasn't going to want to work with me.
Right.
And
Right.
I quickly learned that establishing boundaries, as long as they were communicated, was respected most of the time.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, then that probably wasn't a great client for me.
Yeah. Actually, before we jump on the wins, I actually and you already answered part of it. Like, how did you manage your family life with this demanding profession, and how were you able to not just survive but also shine?
Yeah, I don't think I could be as successful without the support of my husband and my 2 kids. I think that, we operate as a unit, and they, were extremely, especially like later when they were
Right.
little. I think it was hard to understand, why can't you run my lunch up to school? You're right here.
Right.
Like, right, I'm like literally down the block.
Right.
That was hard to explain to them. As they got older, they definitely understood. But, on the weekends I wasn't around, and my husband did, everything that had to be done. And that wasn't, he was more than capable. And that's how we operate. So I think, in retrospect, I would say, I probably could have done a little bit better with the balance with the kids. But I feel like that also made them better, tougher, stronger kids. And I think they recognized that when they went to college.
And they valued your profession.
They did, and they both got their real estate licenses at the high school.
That's awesome.
And that was awesome. And as they've come into the business, not as their primary, they've always been able to help me out. I think they really understood what a day in the life was. That it's not.
It's a very high demanding job. Like there is no fixed schedule on it. So especially the weekends.
There's not, and there's not a okay, every listing this is the job. Right. Every buyer this is the job.
Correct.
We were rolling up a carpet the other day. My daughter's working with me over the summer. She's like, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "This is what we have to do." To sell his house. We got to roll this carpet up. We got to move this furniture. We have to wash this window. And that's weird to some people, but that was required.
Yeah, that's amazing. Talk about some wins, and then I have asked a few more questions for you. If you can, some top wins for you during this whole journey.
I think overall the wins have been the people that I've met, and that may sound really cheesy, but it is, it's I'm so connected, and I see people all over the place, and maybe I'm not the greatest at staying in touch with every single one of my clients, but the genuineness of when I see somebody and we're in the middle of Ivorone hugging each other, or Costco, it's so funny. It could be 7 years that I had sold them a house, and it just makes me happy because they will remember that I didn't make them buy the wrong house. Right? I said to them from the beginning, you might fall in love with the house. I have a problem. I have no filter.
Right.
If I don't think this is the right house, you can go buy it, but you ask me, I'm going to tell you.
Right.
Because sometimes you have heart-shaped pupils because you're being emotional.
Correct.
I'm going to treat you like I'm going to treat a family member. If this isn't the right house, I'm going to tell you my opinion. Right. And there's a lot of sometimes tug of war, with a client, but at the end, I don't have anybody who's been unhappy, and I think that's a big win.
We are one example for sure. We got this house 4 years ago, and Christine has been instrumental in helping us buying the house. And
but it's that trust, right? You have to know that I'm going to be honest with you, and sometimes that honesty can't come packaged, how you want to hear it. Sometimes it has to be okay, guys, what's the resistance here? Right. We saw 45 houses.
Right.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Why are you guys not on this? What's happening? Because it's not real estate.
Right.
Now I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
We need to sit down and figure out why you guys can't pull the trigger.
Yeah, and it was
not
amazing.
You guys.
Yeah.
But
we end up becoming friends.
Yeah.
But it was very amazing to see when we were getting this house, the realtor for the seller, he actually started learning from you.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, Kristen, you can teach these people, other realtors too. That's really amazing.
And that's fair, because I've learned from other people. That we all are in, practicing the art of stealing somebody else's great line, or a great process.
Correct.
There's not a lot of originality.
Right.
There's always somebody who's done it before us, but a lot of people gatekeep, and don't share. I never want to make another agent look bad unless they're begging me to make them look bad. But the listing agent here, he was lovely and he was trying, but maybe he's not as active.
Right.
So you want to make the transaction pleasant for the seller and buyer, because you don't want that animosity. It's already stressful.
Right.
And we were in a very stressful
situation. And people tend to become very insecure, and they of
course.
But from you, what I've seen, you're very, very open to share.
Yeah.
And that's really amazing. And I think when we talk, you were pretty much self-taught, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I would say I had some great mentors around me. One that I'm still, mentoring. We mentor each other at this point.
Okay.
She wasn't in the business that long either, but definitely had a leg up. At that point, that I started, it was here, listen to these cassette tapes,
right?
Go do a couple of open houses, and you're on your way. So there was a lot of self-teaching, and even though someone can teach you, and that's the other reason why gatekeeping makes no sense to me, because I don't have any fear in sharing my process and procedure, because you're going to take that and make it your own, because you can never be me. You have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. You have to be genuine, or else it won't transcend into the market.
Yeah, you cannot really steal anybody's like value or whatever.
You can't.
You have your own value, right?
No, but you can take. Oh wow, I love that marketing piece. I'm going to take it and twist it and make it my own.
Right.
And I see some of my stuff out there. I'm like, oh, all right, that's interesting. Wonder how they got that.
That's amazing. How lovely. So I saw that you're number 4 on Long Island and 2025 Real Trends as the verified top agent.
Okay.
So that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just want to point that out to our audience. My next question is, what is your message for someone who's looking to become a real estate agent? Any do's or don'ts?
I think the fallacy, which was for me as well, right? What I said at the beginning was, I want to have a work-life balance. I want to be a mom and do this job. I think that people are so unaware of the amount of time that full-time real estate agents are putting in. It's you see us at an open house for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it's all the prep before that. It's all the following up after that. And it's so much unrecognized, unsung work that our buyers and sellers just don't even know we're doing, like rolling up the carpet. I'm not calling my seller to be like, hi, I rolled up the carpet, I got the cobwebs out of it. It's just things you're just inherently doing to get this house ready to go. So I think that the time constraints are just not really well publicized, and you don't have that flexibility. I have to be available when you're available. You work full time, so I have to be available after 5 or on the weekends, and I can't be at my son's baseball game. That means I can't be there.
It's a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, it is. And when everybody's going away for spring break, well, most of my clients might be coming in for spring break to go look at houses. So there was a lot of, maybe misjudgment on how much I can make this time my own in the business.
Actually, I had another question. And what are the don'ts? Like any don'ts? Like,
I see a lot of agents just not being genuine or trying to emulate somebody else. And like I said, you can't do that. You can learn from people, but you have to make it your own. And I also think that, leading with honesty in any of the situations is the most important thing. I will constantly, when asked the right question, give the right answer, but I'm never going to mislead somebody. So for example, if I have an offer on a house and my sellers had told me I can, tell people that, then, I'm going to tell. A lot of buyers just don't realize that when we're saying there's offers on this house has been on the market for 3 months. How could there be 3 offers right now?
Correct.
They don't believe that. I have no benefit in lying. So I think to a newer agent, like, don't play games, be straightforward, and find a lane and stay in it. Like, try to find the lane that works for you. And it's not a price point lane. It could be, but I think whatever that is, like maybe I only want to work with X, doctors, or like find your niche and then try to really develop that. Because if you try to be the best at everything, I want to be the, rental specialist and the new development you can't do it all. Really hone and like that, you can be a generalist, but being a specialist, I think, is super important.
What is your specialty?
I think that the funny thing is, the thing that I became really, really good at is what was most fulfilling for me, which was a new buyer, or the flip side. So like a first-time home buyer who needs that guidance, who needs that education, and who needs somebody who's not going to mislead them. Like, to me, that is so fulfilling. And again, that's not a price point game. And then the other side of the business that I really was attracted to was the estate sales. I love helping a family go through the process of, you know, getting prepared to sell their family home, because it's super emotional, and there's a lot involved in it. And then also, I've always loved new construction and development.
Yeah, and I think it's a very competitive market. Like, I see so many real estate agents. I sometimes wonder myself, how are they differentiating? Like, which one is the best one? So I believe if you have your niche, your specific area, your target audience, I think then you can shine.
Yeah.
You can just focus on that, because otherwise it's so hard.
Yeah, and I see a lot of agents trying to jump in, or they think, okay, that person is successful doing new construction, so I'm going to do new construction.
Right.
And I see a lot of agents jumping in, and again, it's a disservice to the builder, it's a disservice to the buyers. And it's not that you can't learn it, but taking it on without having a good knowledge base, you're not benefiting either party.
Right.
You know, and it's funny, I just spoke to a buyer the other day, and they, you know, I was following up on a new construction I had, and they said, oh, well, I'm speaking to builders directly. And like, I clutched my pearls, like, oh my gosh, are they crazy? Like, you're not getting that guidance.
Right.
You don't know that you could negotiate here, there, this, that. Right. You think you're going right to the builder because you're saving him paying my commission. But you're going to spend more money.
Exactly.
You're not going to know that you could have negotiated the shower doors.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and that, like, I can't say that
because
because that's not okay for me to do, but that, like, makes me gasp. Like, oh, they don't get it.
Right. Yeah. And do you have a team to help you? Like, or you just
informally? I always say I date other agents, you know, so, like, in my office, we're extremely collaborative. That is not typical. My office, my Douglas Elliman office in Syosset, is very collaborative. So if I'm on a listing and I happen to ask a listing appointment, and I happen to ask the seller, you know, who am I up against? Like, has anybody said anything that's compelling to you? And they mention that they actually spoke to somebody in my office, because we do have many of the top agents within my office, and a lot of times I'm up against them. I'll go back to the office and I'll just say, hey, funny thing, you know, I was at ABC House, and we'll just partner and work together. Because it's not about, again, it's about the money, but it's also about the experience, and you can get us both, and we'll divide and conquer and figure it out amongst ourselves how it's going to work.
Yeah, like you talked about, like, how you re-roll the carpets and everything. Like, for that, do you bring your other people to help you, or just do everything?
Yeah, and that one, that was my daughter. So she was. Yeah. But there's nobody, like, in my office that I don't feel like I couldn't go to and say, I'm in a jam, from my manager down. There's, like, nobody. Like,
people are just helping each other.
Yeah, and again,
in whatever manner.
We're all independent contractors that we're under the heading of a brokerage, which is, in my case, Douglas Elliman. So we're all, you know, going for many of the same buyers, many of the same listings, many of the same builders. So to work collaboratively versus cutting each other off intentionally. It happens unintentionally most of the time, but doing that intentionally, like coming back to the office. I remember I ran into the office on a Sunday. I was probably coming from a baseball game at that time, and I was in my office trying to print out something, so I had to run to a listing appointment, and I saw one of my agents run by, and I was like, wait a minute, because I had just gotten that call an hour ago, and that's the kind of response that was needed. So I ran to the printer. I said, by any chance, are you going to blah, 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 Cold Spring Road? She's like, yeah. I'm like, me too. She's like, let's go together. And that's not typical.
Yeah.
That's not typical. And from that, we did like 4 other deals together.
That's nice.
Yeah. And it's like this weird thing in real estate that every time you go on vacation, like, everybody and anybody you ever wanted to talk to calls you. So that.
How lovely. That's just so amazing. How do you see the current market trend for real estate in terms of both selling and buying and rentals? I know it's a broad question.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of rentals, like, very infrequently. If they're, you know, a special client or a referral, you know, I will never turn a referral down, but I will typically bring somebody in on a rental, because the rental lane is very specific. You really have to, you know, stay on top of vetting people, and making sure it's the right tenant and making sure that you're adhering to the fair housing rules. And there's a lot in rentals, so you want to be careful there. At Douglas Elliman, you have to take a rental course to be a rental specialist. I always take the course, but it's still, that's just a course. The date, like,
you have to do course how frequently?
Every year at Douglas Elliman, we have to get recertified in the rental course. And I think every 2 years we have to take continuing ed for New York State to keep our licenses intact. But as far as, the resales, and I'm just going to speak specifically about the Syosset School District market, it's definitely stagnated. There was a big shift, from May. Like, so if we had homes put on the market from January through April, there was still a momentum there. There was a shift come June, which isn't typical, right? Because people are wanting to get in for school. It just started to slow down. A lot of it is driven by interest rates. A lot of it is driven by buyer exhaustion. Some of these people I have on my open house sheets going back for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And those are multiple people who've been out there looking and just haven't been able to find it or not being able to buy it. I'm seeing that the buyers are just being a little bit more discerning about price and value. So yeah, it's definitely slowed down. I see a wave right now of new buyers coming out. I know interest rates tweaked a little bit, not enough to like take a lot of people, I think, off the sidelines. Our inventory is very low though, like very low.
Yeah, very few houses.
Very few houses.
Yeah.
And so.
And not even like the new houses, right?
I just really haven't seen a lot going, off the shelf right now. I think that'll probably change if interest rates just back up a little bit.
You think interest rates will go down?
I don't have a crystal ball.
But
I stay in my real estate lane.
but the thing is, like, how do you see do you forecast like how it's gonna go?
I don't do any forecasting of.
But your company guide you in some ways, like.
Again, not with like so much with interest rates. I mean, we have so globally, right? We're a big company,
right.
So a lot of times the market is spoken about in that global sense, but we're local.
Right.
So somebody in a different market, even close by, could be experiencing something very different than we are.
Okay.
We have a little bit of a draw because of the school district, the proximity to the city, and the price point. So our typical buyers will come out of the city or Queens,
right,
or Brooklyn,
right.
But really hit Manhasset area, Port Washington first. Feel like they're not getting a lot for their money. They'll push into Rosslyn, and then jump to Syosset. And usually Syosset when I say Syosset, I mean Muttontown, Oysterby Cove, Woodbury, all of that. The areas that encompass the Syosset School District.
Right.
That's about as far as they want to go if they're commuting.
Okay.
Right? So if they're taking or plan to take the train, this is about as far as they want to come.
Yeah.
From a commuting standpoint.
So
So we have a little bit of this, specific market because of our school district.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a great school district.
Yeah.
And a lot of good people in the neighborhood. Pretty much those were my questions, but I have another question. Curious to know, like, what inspired you today, like, to move forward? Anybody you inspired in your family or outside, which keeps you going also? Somebody who you look up to?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I would say, like, I'm kind of a little bit in my head because my mom right now is, going through a little bit of a medical issue and she's 90. But when I go to see my mom, she is always so upbeat and genuinely positive and, not down. She's always has a kind word for everybody. She's so pleasant to be around. And I find that, like, very inspirational because she could have a lot to complain about.
Right.
And I think that, attitude is so important. And look, a lot of these real estate deals get very icky and things go sideways and people behave badly. And you can get kind of stuck in that mindset of, oh, this is a grind.
Right.
And then I see my mom and she's like, it's a beautiful day, and I'm like,
even though she's going through so many
going through so many things. So, I find that very inspirational for sure.
That's amazing. Christine, it was lovely to talk to you.
This
Thank
was
you so much.
fun.
This was
Thank
really
you.
fun. Thank you.
All right, thanks.